People related to a psychopath. What is your creepiest story? My nephew is a crazy little boy. Once, the entire family was playing hide and seek. He was around 9. He didn't like where I hid, so he flew into a rage. He tried to hit me. I grabbed his wrist and twisted just enough to subdue him. He screamed like a freaking maniac. I released him. He then ran into another room stating he needed his Nerf gun to shoot me because he shoots people whenever he's mad. I looked at my sister-in-law and said, "Seriously, you're okay with this?" Her response was that his rage was my fault. I had no right to touch him and that I should have just let him hit me since he's only a boy. I told her, quite firmly, that if her crazy little bastard ever even gave the appearance of causing harm to one of my children, that I would put him down like a rabid dog. Fortunately, her husband, my wife's parents, and everyone else present told her that she was wrong. Her kid was nuts and that this was a serious red flag. Flash forward 2 years. Kid is still crazy, but that's everyone else's problem because he's still just a boy. I'm staying at their house. Things have mostly settled from that prior incident. I wake up very early every morning. So around 4:30, I find myself awake. I don't want to get up and wake up everyone else, so I just sort of lie there and meditate. At around 5:20, the door opens. Thinking it's my kids, who were young at the time and still came to get us early, I kind of just glanced up. Then I notice that it's the nephew and he's holding what appears to be an AR-15. Now, I suffer from PTSD from Iraq. So my fight or flight response is triggered, my heart is pounding and I'm basically in survival mode. I wait. I watch. He creeps past the foot of the bed, walks up to my side and raises this rifle up to point the muzzle at my face. So I figure, this is it. I'm going to unalive. Today it ends. The only goal I have for myself right now is to prevent him from harming my wife and kids. He raises it up and the muzzle is a few inches from my face. I reached up, I grabbed the muzzle and I pushed as hard as I could, sending the butt into the little kid's face. His nose is hurt, he's crying, he's screaming about how he's going to end me, how I'm finished. So now everyone is awake. Lights are flipped on and I see that it's a toy rifle made to look like an AR-15. Apparently, this little boy was planning to stick the muzzle in my face and pull the trigger to scare the crap out of me with flashing lights and electronic gun sounds. I feel somewhat torn. On the one hand, I just broke an 11-year-old's nose for playing with a toy gun. My sister was really upset. Her chosen narrative is that I'm a mentally unstable lunatic who is a danger to all children. She calls the cops. She insists, despite the protestations of my wife, that she's having me arrested and charged with child mistreatment. Police arrive. Interviews take basically the whole day. I'm a little worried that, getting arrested aside, I might not be able to leave this and go home the next day as planned because these cops might not be done with their investigation. Fortunately, it didn't play out that way. See, this little kid wasn't just crazy around me. He was a crazy kid everywhere and had been for years. The police had a file on him because the school was required to call the police every time he threatened a firearm to school, which he had done very often. I laid out my version of events much like I did here. I didn't see him and have a flashback thinking he was an insurgent. I saw him, I knew what was going through his head, and I wanted to try to prevent him from finishing my family. They did let me go home on schedule. And a week later the detective called me to let me know there would be no charges. He also told me that his interview with my nephew was chilling and he hopes that my sister-in-law pulls her head out of the sand and gets the kid some help. I told him she won't ever, and when he's 30 years old and on trial she'll be crying and saying he's just a boy. Hopefully he doesn't hurt anyone, but I know the odds are stacked against that hope.